Abdullah ibn Muhammad, blah, blah, blah. Right. So here we have sources that we can look at. I haven't looked at these myself. I haven't even looked for them or downloaded them. But it's worth looking at. Now they offer conclusions, and that's nice. They can offer conclusions. Here's the thing. Islam is already founded. The laws are already written. Some new doctor, whoever the heck, okay, Zakir Naik here, he can't come along and change Islam. He has to respect what has already been interpreted by the scholars. You have to follow it. They can't go and rewrite Islam. Sure, they can lie to you, but no, they can't. Islam's already been decided. The ijma, the consensus of all the scholars, right, of all the lawyers of Islam, it's already fixed. There's very little wiggle room. Now, I'll say the scholars don't agree. Nonsense. That's just rukhsa. Both of those are doctrines that are accepted by Allah, and you're rewarded for them, whether you are azima, strictly following, or rukhsa, which is basically facilitation, loosely following, right? Those are still valid. The proof of Naskh. The vast majority of the scholars have upheld the validity of Naskh. Okay. Some may have raised doubts. That's all fine and well. Okay. Now, Abu Muslim was the first scholar to deny the validity of Naskh, and in this he went against the consensus. Now notice, Abu Muslim went against the consensus of all the scholars before him. So he went against the consensus. So Abu Muslim's view has been aptly refuted, because you cannot win against the ijma. You cannot win against the scholarly consensus. This is the agreement, right? So this is the agreement of all the scholars. We've agreed that this means this, and that's it. Moving on. So Abu Muslim's view has been aptly refuted, since the Quran and Sunnah is very explicit on the occurrence of Naskh. So the Quran and the Sunnah are explicit on the occurrence of Naskh. The Quran says, and before we go on, so ijma, just to bring a point, what ijma is in law, it is the third, and in practice, the most important of the sources of legal knowledge in Islam. Notice he didn't say holy knowledge, he said legal knowledge. Understand, they're not priests, they are lawyers. I want to drive that home. Being the unanimous agreement of the community, right, on a regulation imposed by Allah, on a law imposed, right? Not, it's law. Allah is a lawyer. Technically, ijma is the unanimous doctrine and opinion of the recognized religious authorities at any given time. Don't forget, the earliest of the scholars were the best of the scholars. The later ones are the watered down ones. So everyone respects the earliest ones. No one goes against the founders. So it should be pointed out, Abu Muslim did not deny the validity of what has been defined as Naskh, but he did not name it as such. For him, every mansukh was specified by the Nasikh to have been meant only for a limited time. So now it says he denied, earlier we saw he denied the idea of abrogation, but what he's saying is not, it wasn't cancelled. It's just this is a subtlety, it's a difference. He's saying the verse wasn't cancelled by this verse. God did not have, Allah, sorry, did not have contradictions, because, contradictions are bad, right? I mean, Allah's not the author of confusion. So what he's saying, no, this was only just for a temporary time. It was just for a temporary time. So it was just basically valid for that time, and then it faded away, right? That ended, and now here's a new rule because this time is past, that circumstance is gone. Of course, we have covenants in the Bible, multiple covenants. We have 4 major covenants, 16 minor covenants, if I remember, hundreds of covenants throughout the Bible. But of course, when God does that in the Bible, it's like, doesn't God know what's going on? Well, yeah, thanks, Muslims. So they do the same thing. Their scholars say the same things. But when it happens in Christianity, it's like, and we came first. It's confusion, because Islam doesn't change. But here, I don't know. You tell me what the scholars are saying. Moving on. So Abu Muslim's view has been aptly refuted, since the Quran and Sunnah is very explicit on the occurrence of Naskh. So the Quran says we do not abrogate a ruling or cause it to be forgotten, except that we substitute in its place something better than it or similar to it. Allah is capable of all things, including evil, lying, and yeah. So that's Allah, capable of all things. So when we change a verse in the Quran in place of another, and Allah knows best what he sends down, they say, you, O Muhammad, are but a forger. Nay, but most of them are ignorant. So people obviously realize that Muhammad was changing his mind, and this is, so people were commenting back then already. However, Qadi does tell us in these verses, the concept of Naskh is very explicit. So why are Muslims arguing with us about this? If Allah says this, and the scholars of Islam say this, and Yasir Qadi, PhD, says this. Treasure Best, good job with all this work. Thank you. So apart from these verses, there are numerous instances in the Quran or Sunnah when Naskh has been mentioned explicitly. For example, initially, a Muslim in battle was prohibited from fleeing from the enemy if he were faced with 10 enemy soldiers, a ratio of 10 to 1. Allah then revealed, Allah has lightened your burden, for He knows that there's a weakness in you. So if there are 100 of you, they shall overcome 200. The ratio was reduced to one Muslim for every two non-Muslim soldiers. So now if you fought double your force, like, yeah, whatever, things have changed.